I ran for county executive because I wanted to change two things in Prince George's County. One very important thing, and that was our K through 12 education system. Because I still believe that is the one area that is holding us back from being everything we should be and being the leader. The other was public safety. I believe if we get those two things right, then everything else will fall in line. We've got everything else. We've got location. But what I found out is I can't fund those two things. One, the county has relied too long on residential property taxes. Unlike everybody else in the region, which saw the handwriting on the wall and started to balance between residential property taxes and commercial taxes, we didn't. If you look at Montgomery County, and Jerry can tell you this, they started looking at growing around the 270 corridor, bringing in that tax base, commercial tax base, to balance what they had in residential so you could pay for it. We didn't. So when I came in, I found this really large deficit with no money for our schools. And from there I said, okay, well, how do we, one, get greater revenue and bring businesses into the county? So being very honest with ourselves as we did the assessment, and Gwen can tell you about that because she was right there in those meetings, is we knew that we had a couple of challenges facing Prince George's County. And one thing we weren't going to do in this administration was pretend like we didn't have them. So the first was, right off the bat, had to do with ethics. Clearly coming into office, the things that happened in November, we were faced with ethics questions throughout this region. One, could you get a fair deal in Prince George's County? Was there pay to play? So immediately what we said was we're going to go in here and tackle it straight on. First bill out the gate was to deal with ethics reform. And that is one, how we get our money, both the county executive and the county council. Now, as I said to my friends on the county council, and they are my friends, I said, I'm putting myself in this. As county executive, you have a couple of privileges, and it's an opportunity for a guy who never raised money to actually raise it. But I thought it was more important to send a signal to the wider community that Prince George's County was different. So one had to do with raising funds and our ability to raise them from these slates. The other had to do with a provision that only Prince George's County has, and that is the ability of county council members to hold pieces of legislation, they call it call-up or callback, to hold it. For no apparent reason, they can hold up a development project. And we wanted to put a time limit on that. There probably are legitimate reasons for community concerns to ask questions, but it shouldn't be indefinite. As business people, what you want to know is what are the rules up front? Certainty. I know when I ran, a small nonprofit, uncertainty killed us because we didn't have much money. So we dealt with that right away, up front, in the open, and very publicly and sometimes ugly. But one, we got that, check, that's gone. So business people said, hey, listen, we don't want to come here because of those two things. We're like, no, take that off your list. The others were education and public safety. And so, if you look, and we all know this, your reputation of your city, county, or state is based on K through 12 education. If anybody tells you it's anything else, they're lying to you. Montgomery County, Howard County, Arlington, Fairfax County get their reputation because of their school system. Not because they have people who have money. People who have money go there because of the school system. Businesses go there because of the school system. We in Prince George's County, a wealthy county, an affluent county, have a school system that is making progress. So what we said to the business community, what we said to people at large is, you know what? We're serious about this. So even in a budget deficit, we're going to fund our school system completely, what they asked for. But we're going to add a sweetener to theirs also. $14 million is what we put additionally into our school system. Would we have liked to give them more? Yes. But outside and above $14 million to send a signal to the community at large, to the Washington region, we're serious about improving those things that are challenges in the county. The other was public safety, where we've made great strides. In fact, we're at a 35-year low in public safety. Every indicator in public safety in terms of the good things that should be up are up, the bad things that should be down are down. Every indicator that crime is going that way, we included in funding for public safety, but not just police. As I like to say, public safety is not just our police officers. It's fire. It's making sure we can respond in a timely manner, both in terms of fire and medics. So we increased. There was the only increase we had in the budget was for education and public safety. So our police department, our fire department, they were modest increases, but we saw increases. Our corrections department, and as important, our state's attorney's office. Prince George's County prosecutes more cases than any other jurisdiction outside of Baltimore City. They have 200 attorneys. We have 70. We get just as many cases. So what we said was, we need more prosecutors. If we're arresting, housing people, we need more prosecutors. So we put that in the budget. So overall, we made strides in terms of public safety. So if someone comes up and says, Prince George's County is unsafe. Nope, that's not the case. Check it off. We did something about that. The other thing was process. Everyone told us throughout the campaign, the permitting process in Prince George's County is the worst you could ever find. One, because of uncertainty. Two, because it takes too doggone long. So we said, okay, well, how do we deal with that? And Gwen was in those meetings, and there are times I'm sure she wished she wasn't, because it caused her to have a new job. But I said, I wanted our folks to think about how do we make it so that, as frustrating thing for me when years ago when I was a special assistant and legal counsel to a nonprofit, and my boss thought as lawyer you should know everything, and she would send me down to the DC government to get our money, and it would take me 5 months to get a payment request, and she couldn't understand why. And I said, well, because they sent me to this office, to this office, to this office, and then back to that same office, and then they sent me somewhere else. She was like, well, you should have figured all that out. I was like, well, I figured it out. They just haven't figured out a smooth process. I need one place to go, one stop. So in this government, what I want is one person as county executive. I can say, why is it taking too long? And in order to do that, what we decided to do is to steal from the region. Find people who are doing it well and steal them. Bring them to Prince George's County. So the first person we plucked was Gwen McCall. She was like, I've done planning, run a business in D.C. and around. I said, great, come on in here. And she said, great. She was like, I'm ready to work for the administration. I said, I got a new job for you. I want people to know that the county executive takes EDC, Economic Development Corporation, very, very serious. I want them to know by the person I put over there that this is an extension of the administration that goes straight to the top. I said, welcome to your new job. I sent her over to the board and said, you guys are getting a great person who will bring those ideas back to the county executive. So we check off that one. Then we decided, we looked around and we said, a lot of development is around in our target of this administration, and I say it so I'm upfront, nobody comes back and says, that guy lied to me. He said he was going to fund everything in the world, and he didn't. Nope. I said the administration is going to focus on what I think, where we can get the greatest bang for our buck and where we can leverage it. And that is inside the Beltway communities, around our metro systems, which have been forgotten. But as we see the district elevating its growth, we need to meet it. And so we looked over there and we said, okay, well, who's doing that well? And we grabbed Aubrey Thager from the district that, worked on some great projects. You come on in. And then we said, well, who's running a fund and really knows stuff? And one name kept coming up. And they said, David Iannucci. I said, well, I know David. He lives in Prince George's County. Let's get him in and pick his brain. And sure enough, about a couple of months. We didn't tell him anything was going on. We just sat there and we just did a brain drain. Then after it was over, we said, you know what, you don't have anything left, so we got all your ideas. You might as well come on with us. And so we brought him over. And then my good friend, Ike Leggett, was telling me about how well, he had this person that was running his permitting office. Jerry can tell you because they helped recruit her and bring her over there. And He said she was just really great. And I said, Carla, she's doing a great job. He said, yeah, she's turning around. I said, perfect. I called Carl up. I said, we just wanted to talk to you about some ideas. Little did he know we were going over there. We did the stealth thing and stole her. Said, come on over here. I say all that to say we put everything under one division, one person in a cabinet level. So at the highest level of this government, economic development, growth, and business is first priority. And we said, okay, if you have a problem, you can go to one area. Everything that touches economic development, whether it's housing, whether it's the environmental resources, whether it's transportation, you name it, if it touches economic development, it is housed under one division. So we should be able to correct your problems and your concerns immediately. So we did that and we said, check it off, you can come in here. So we do all those things, but that just puts us on a level to compete with the region. What I want is an advantage. I want them to know not only that Prince George's County has these underdeveloped metro sites, that we're close to the District of Columbia. I want them to know immediately. I want people to turn around and say, wow, that's what I wanted. And so as we were talking to folks internally, we said, well, who has a fund that's doing it right? We know Montgomery County has one, which is about $4 or $5 million that they deal with. One of the most successful ones that we kept hearing about was Baltimore County, which is why we stole David. We said, well, what are you doing in Baltimore County? And so, he's very aggressive with $4 million. So we talked about, well, what happens if we do $20 million? He said, oh, that would be good. We said, well, what about 50? He said, wow. I said, there. Bingo. That's what I want. I want wow. I want people to stand up and pay attention. Even if they don't go after the fund, I want them to look at Prince George's County as the place where they want to come and do business and work. So that's why we put it. And then we tested it by going to Wall Street. Went there, because Wall Street, of course, was concerned. You had this new county executive, never managed anything more than, an office of 18 employees, 7 at his last job, from the legislature, so they think you just spend money if you're in the legislature. They really don't trust you. And so they just wanted to meet me and make sure I went insane and I actually hired people who could count. And we tested them with that. They said, well, you've got all these challenges in Prince George's County. How are you going to raise revenue in a down economy when you depend on property taxes? That's not going to turn around for a while. And we said, well, here's our plan. We're not going to wait around to see if the economy turns around. We're not going to wait around to see if businesses actually come to us. We're going to be aggressive about going after them. They said, well, that's great. You're going to be aggressive. You're going to go and sell the county. But, you're telling me the other people weren't aggressive? I said, well, I don't know if they were or weren't. I know this much. We're going to get another tool in there. I said, well, what do you think about the fact that we're going to bring out a $50 million incentive fund? And they said, wow. I said, perfectly. They said, well, that gets our attention. I said, that's what we want. We want to get your attention and other people's attention. That right there, I think, gave them confidence that, one, we were thinking beyond where we had in the past. It also, we let them know, and this is what the big deal is about when we say to the county council, is the largest fund in this region is the state, and they're doing $70 million. Prince George's County eclipsed everybody else with a $50 million incentive fund. That right there is the sweetener. That is the one that makes it possible for us to get people's attention to say, here are some areas we want to see developed. But in order to do that, we've got to be focused on where we think we can leverage those dollars. So that's why we say transit-oriented development. Doesn't have to be exclusively there, but it's where we think like a New Carrollton, like a Suitland, like a Branch Avenue, which is going to be a great project for us to attract people. Naylor Road. Those are the places right now people aren't thinking about where we think have the greatest potential to grow in this region because of several things. One, the economy has collapsed. It's going to take a while to turn around. So people want to be closer to the only place that has jobs and that has to stay in business, and that's the federal government. Although Congress can try to kick it out. but they have to stay in business. Also, the base realignment. You know, Andrews is now, what do they call it? Not Andrews. Joint base Andrews, which means for me, in layman's terms, we were able to steal some stuff from Crystal City and from the Pentagon and relocate them to Andrews. As someone who grew up in the military, I can tell you, that means people and businesses. Military people who have to come to this area, we want to capture them, have them live in Prince George's County. But more importantly, businesses that make their living off the military, right here in Prince George's County. We need to be able to take advantage of that. And the way we do it is by adding extra incentives to come to these areas. So we did all that, and we think it's a great plan. So why am I here today taking up your time? One, because we want you to know about the $50 million incentive fund, and two, because we need your help. This is designed to get money, not to me, or you're not going to get any money, are you? Okay, David's not going to get any money either. When? Do you plan to get any of this money? No. Shelley?
No.
So, since we won't be using any of this money, we need you to use it. But we need it to work for you. And unless it's changed since the time that I've actually, which is, well, a year ago, unless it's changed since a year ago when I was actually running a business, it needs to turn around quickly. If it takes 80 days for a loan or a grant to go through, then I don't need it because I'm probably out of business or I'm desperate. What we needed is turn around in business time. So the fight that we're having now, or the discussion we're having now, and we think we're making progress with the Council to see is, one, yes, we want checks and balances. We want to make sure, and that's why we put it in a yearly budget. We put the $50 million, which is risky for me, is we put it in the budget each year. Say, you know what, if we're not doing a good job, take it out. If it's not going where it should be going, take it out. Two, we want to make sure that when you have, checks and balances, if we're spending over $1 million is what we propose, and we're willing to come down on it. If it's over $1 million, then it should have council approval. We're willing to come down. Because the reason I said that we wanted to do it over $1 million, and we're willing to go down to $500,000, I think is what we're willing to do, is this money is not going to go to nine councilmatic districts. It's just not. It's designed to be used as a tool to leverage in those places. What we call the but-for test. But for us, these projects wouldn't go forward. Some council member said, and I thought it was funny and I liked it. She said, "Will we do this but for Richard?" And I thought that was the greatest line. I was like, whoa, I was giving myself credit. That's right. No, it wasn't for me. We wouldn't have this idea. No. But on a serious note, what the idea is, you need to be able to come to us, be able to get this money, and not have to worry about getting 5 votes to get the money. That's the thing. And what I explained to them, and I think they get it, is that takes us back to that whole first issue, which is the ethics. If we have to sit around and actually get 5 votes, then what somebody is going to say is, well, I want this money split 9 ways. That's not going to happen. This is designed to be focused. And so we're streamlining the process to make sure that the resources get to you in a faster period. And so what we've said to the council is, give us a shorter turnaround period. We're willing to go down on the amount of money in terms of council approval, but it needs to turn around the way Montgomery County, we use this example because it's the truth. As we were trying to get HHS to come to Prince George's County, we had everything GSA said they wanted. We were near a metro station. We had the workforce because it's us. We're the ones actually going over to these places. 60% of our folks are going out of Prince George's County to work. We had everything that they said they wanted, but yet they stayed in Montgomery County. There are a lot of factors that go into it, but it didn't hurt that they could actually put a sweetener on there of what we believe is about $20 million that they put on the table. Well, if we had the incentive fund, we at least could have, taken $2 million and said, we're willing to do these infrastructure changes around it. We're willing to do this to, maybe pay down some of the lease to get those jobs into Prince George's County. Because remember, the whole idea of this incentive fund is not just for, like I said, none of us are going to get it. It's to get it out the door to help you grow your businesses, so you hire more people, so you pay more taxes, so I can fund my schools and public safety. It is that. It's the incentive to get you to do those things. And but if we make it difficult, if we put obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in your way, then what incentive is that for you to come to us? You can go, if you want to run through the line, you can go to Wells Fargo or a bank or anybody. What we want to do is make it easier for you to do it because we want it in your hand. Final thing I'll say is, most of these loans will be around $250,000. $250,000. So for $250,000, you don't want to have to take 80 days to get $250,000. It won't help you because it's mostly we're talking about small, local, minority businesses. Small, local, minority. The majority of these will go out to those firms. I think in Baltimore County, that's where we saw the majority going to. Because the big guys, quite honestly, always have options. This right here is for the businesses that we want to see in a mall, in a shopping center like we're in today. The ones who will go to Branch Avenue right now while we're having problems and take a chance. So we want to be able to leverage it. And so without having that turnaround on a quick basis, then it won't do you any good. Because you don't have 90 days worth of payroll unless you're doing really, really well. You may have 60 days, but what you're hoping is you're taking a chance and we're asking you to take a chance. So we shouldn't be an extra burden to you, and that's what we want this to do. And so that really is our incentive fund. But it really is about you. It's not about us. If it works for us, then that doesn't do us any good, quite honestly, because we're not the people who are going to be using it. We're not going to apply for the loan. We're not going to take the chance out there on the business. It's got to work for you. So if we're off base and you can wait 80 days, then let us know, because that'll save me some words with the council. I can say 80 days works. Or, if the process, is not, it can be lengthy, in terms of the permitting process, great. But it's got to work for you, and we've got to know that it's something that you apply for. Because, Shelley will tell you who's a great partner in this and who needs it. If you're not coming through the door to see her, or if you're not coming through to see Gwen, and it's just sitting there, it will serve the first purpose, and I will admit that, the wow factor. We get that now. Because everybody in the region cannot believe that Prince George's County is going to do this. In fact, we were talking to the Business Journal yesterday. The Post asks all the time. I was in Arlington. They were like, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, it took some convincing, but that part is already there, so people are looking at us. But we need the next part, and that is actually to see it get out the door and do the first deal. Once we do the first one, and they see how it works, then it's going to roll from there." And I'll end by saying this. I believe this is not just a slogan. It's not something I say because, for the next 3 years and some months, I'm county executive. But I believe that Prince George's County is the growth, economic growth, and the population growth of the Washington region, which is really what we are. And therefore, the investment of the state and local government should be in Prince George's County. And I believe, and I'm going to make this case, that the federal government should look here. If we take the EDI fund, we go to Branch Avenue. Not only should the state take some of its money from its $70 million investment fund, but also the president. We should have DHCD at the federal level, transportation, EPA, all of those agencies should invest in us because we're a good example of what can happen in a regional investment to change. I believe that. And I believe this is another tool in that will get, and somebody said this, get the White House attention. Because we're doing exactly what the president tried to do with stimulus money. Yeah. We're just targeting more focus at a local level. And I believe that. So with that, Thank you very much for listening to me.
Are there any restrictions on how the funds are going to be able to be used? Can it be used for construction?
The fund will be used, we expect, for classic business needs, which could be building construction, building improvement, land acquisition, equipment purchasing. Those will be the kind of classic uses. We want to allow businesses to improve their facilities, to grow their facilities, to ultimately hire new employees, and to pay more property taxes.
There you go. We want the flexibility, and that's a good question, because the idea, and this is what we've said to the council is, we're not going to put we don't want to put restrictions on there. We want it to be flexible enough for you to use to create jobs in the end. So it will be flexible.
On the perspective of innovation, have you all looked at different perspectives on bringing innovative companies?
We want to use this to attract them. And so we want it flexible enough, because some of those funds may want us to say, hey, you know what? Whatever your long-term lease, if you're going to lease in the county, which we like, because then that spurs some more dollars in there, maybe this could be used as a buy-down. This could be used as a loan. So those companies, especially in the technology field, that are going to come up around, Branch Avenue and Naylor Road, and even in the southern part where National Harbor is. There's not a metro site there per se, but we're close to Homeland Security in the district, which eventually will expand. So we think that those innovative firms that are doing those type of things, that we can use this, and I'm sure Gwen is excited about having a tool her team can go out, and when she sits down with those businesses and say, you know what, we know you were thinking about maybe going to Arlington, but here's what we can do, and here's a fund that can help you access some of that little extra edge. So yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned our federal neighbors. I think we really need to have some kind of outreach program to look at those best practices in other areas where they're bringing in federal employees. And I think part of that's going to be done bringing in the commercial real estate brokers. I'm invited here as a guest of the Prince George's County Association of Realtors, and Realtors, we're the ambassadors. We're on the ground, and we know when people make decisions to come here, and not from a commercial standpoint. And my second comment has to do with the residential component. Number one in foreclosure in the state, month after month, quarter, year after year after year. We could bring the jobs here with your fund. I think it's a great opportunity. However, I think we're defeating part of the purpose when those people travel out of the county because they don't want to live here, because they're afraid buying a home in this county will continue to decline in value. And that's a huge impediment for me doing my job as an ambassador for this county, to get people to come here and live here, and particularly in our first ring neighborhoods. It's a major problem. So I hope that your team and other departments are looking at this and complement your program with something that's going to speak to the foreclosure problems here in Prince George's County.
I mean, one of the reasons we're excited about bringing DHCD, the state housing department, to Prince George's County and to New Carrollton is just for that reason. One, it puts a focus on Prince George's County because of the foreclosures and the fact that we have a housing market here. So having them locate here and paying more attention, I've asked Eric Brown from our office to look at that. Because you do get it firsthand, and we're going to make sure that both Gwen and David are setting something up with the realtors, because you get it firsthand. You hear the comments about schools, which is why we had to make some changes around our schools in terms of even on Andrews Air Force Base, even in some of our communities that are close to the district line. We're looking to change, but housing and having the secretary living here and putting the focus on how we're going to do that, I think it's going to be important. The other thing is, to add to your point, the new president of the University of Maryland, who is great, Dr. Lowe, he is phenomenal. If you haven't met him, you haven't invited him out, you should have him out. I mean, he is just really good. Not only does he get it as a president of a university, but in terms of the development and extending the university to the community. So there's development projects that he has, like East Campus and some others that are around there that he's working on. But then he said to me, he said, you know what I really need? I need to convince our people, our professors, our administrators to live in Prince George's County, to buy the executive homes. And he set the example, one, of buying a house in Prince George's County. Not just living on campus, but actually living in the community. But he wants more of that. And so what we said to him is that we want your folks to see what's around here. And that gets to your point, is as the ambassadors, we need to do a better job of saying, here are the opportunities in the county, here are the changes we're making. This fund will help us, bring the amenities that people say they're missing. But we also have to show them what the progress we're making in our schools, which we are. We keep investing in it. The last thing with GSA and the government, I think you're absolutely right, and we're changing the way that we approach it. We're not just sitting back waiting for the next round of them to select a lease space to come to Prince George's County. What I've tasked both the economic development arm and our intergovernmental affairs, Lisa Jackson's shop, with, we're going to be proactive. From now on, I know we usually lobby Congress, so we get our Congress people who are great, they all support us. But to be quite honest, they're not the people making the decision. It's in the individual departments. So if we don't know the people who are actually there at HHS or these other places, then we're going to lose out, because they're the ones weighing in on why they don't want to come here. And it's usually based on, schools first of all, crime second of all, and I don't have any place to eat. We need to be working those folks right there at that level. So by the time it gets to GSA, they are our advocates. So I've tasked them with going out to these various departments and start making contacts now, before there's even something that's on the block that says, hey, we want to go. The other thing is our economic development folks are meeting with GSA, taking them around. Let's just show you Prince George's County and what we're doing. Just like we did with Wall Street. We brought Wall Street here in the midst of them saying they were going to downgrade people. We're like, hey, come see us. We took them around the county to say, you know what? It's one thing to hear about Prince George's County, to read it in the paper. It's another thing to touch what the potential is and what we're doing right now, and that this is not just us, just saying it. We're going to do the same thing with GSA, and we're going to do the same thing. I have to say this, our congressional partners have been very good, but Senator Mikulski, if you've ever been in a meeting with her, then the way that she hammers GSA, and she makes them come out to Prince George's County and go through not only the departments, but the county itself, and she asks tough questions, and she's done it with each one and say, why are your people not coming here? Did you see this? Do you know this is going on? Do you know Conterra is going on? Do you know what's going to happen at New Carrollton? Do you know the potential of Branch Avenue? Suitland. How do we get them off out of the building and out into the community? But we've got to be just as aggressive as a county. So their task is, and Gwen's task, Gwen is to go out there, find those businesses that potentially could come here, and just, just hold on with a bulldog grip and say, this is why you got to come here, and just badger them. David's job is to not only help support that, but also to go out on the federal level and say the same thing. My job is to go out there and say, you know what, I don't know why you're here. You're missing out. You're gonna be short. You better come here, because there's a flood coming to Prince George's County. So you need to come here and invest and convince the wider world that it needs to be here. But we've got to do our job in going directly after those. And I think you're absolutely right, and spend more time with you. The realtors actually get a chance to see it and know it. And so we're going to do that.
What is the plan for the existing businesses that are already here, and how they can take advantage of this?
Excellent question. Because there are two things that we left out. One is existing businesses here. How do we make sure that you grow and you get advantage of this? The other thing is, and I always say to our folks, is it's great for you to come out and hear us talk. But when I sat in your seats, my thing was, how can I actually get some work out of this? Because that's really why I'm here. I'm trying to figure out how I can get some work. How does this turn into revenues for me? And that's the charge that we have. One is, as David said, priority is given to small local businesses in Prince George's County. That's our priority. So that means we need to get the money out the door faster. The other is, how do we make sure there's opportunities? We're teaming you up, where there's an opportunity for you to grow your business. You know, if somebody walks through Gwen's shop that needs to find a space, how do we make sure that they're actually using Prince George's County realtors to show them around? How do we make sure that if we get an opportunity for the government to come here, we want them to lease the space, not buy the building? Because we want to turn it over. So our job is to figure out and to help you figure out how to grow your business. And I've tasked each one of my staff people. Roland Jones in the minority business office, he's tasked with making sure, you know, those local small minority businesses, that they understand the opportunities, and he knows what their capabilities are, and we're putting them front and center. And so we're going to do that.
I think one of the issues for nonprofits is we are not likely to pay the taxes other than payroll tax. Are we going to be on the same equal footing in applying for some of these funds to grow some of the nonprofits?
The idea is, one, with nonprofits, as you know, that's the world that I came from, and ours in D.C. Was to revitalize, you know, areas of the district which had been overlooked. You go down Georgia Avenue, it's hard to believe that was overlooked at one time, but it was, and that was our charge. But the idea is that we want to make sure the businesses, the nonprofit community especially, which is why I think it's critical for the nonprofit and the small businesses to be able to get the resources quickly. You know, if you haven't, you know, have an idea or something you want to go in, or even if it's to locate a space over here where you house all the nonprofits in Prince George's County, you say, listen, you guys, there's synergy there. There's a place that we can lease the space. So if you're leasing space, or you buy a building and you rent out to other nonprofits, you're creating the type of what we call foot traffic and businesses throughout. So yes, you know, we're going to encourage. That's why we said even to the faith community. You know, churches are now forming, you know, nonprofits to do development. This is what this is for. Matter of fact, it's for you more so than anybody else. You're going to need it. And and so we want to make sure it comes out. But to answer your question, yes, you know, we're going to make sure because one, and I'll just close by this. One of the other areas we're falling down in the county is if you look at, you know, foundations that invest in nonprofits, Prince George's County gets the least in the regions. You look at D.C., Virginia, I mean, we get the least. And you know what? It's capacity. Our nonprofits don't have the type of capacity that they would say, you know, we want to come in and invest $10 million into the nonprofit that does this, does X, Y, and Z. There's not capacity. What this fund can help is to build that capacity. Because those nonprofits coming, those foundations coming in here, once again gets, you know, if we hear that, you know, the Gates Foundation is coming in here investing in a nonprofit, immediately Prince George's County, you know, name recognition goes up. So people start saying, well, why did Gates invest in that? Like Newark. When he invested in Newark, everybody said, you know, let's run to Newark and invest in Newark. You know, in their school system. They must be doing something that no one else is doing. Well, I want them to say that about Prince George's County. So that's why it's going to be important.